The following story is about a real homicide investigation with graphic content. Viewer discretion is advised. Previously on The Murder Mind. The first responding officer tells me he responded to a 911 call from a distraught wife finding her husband deceased in the backyard. This victim is 61-year-old Dennis McGuire. This is not a typical homicide scene. It's not an apparent robbery. The way it looked is that he took a shot to the chest, fell down, and the killer stood right over him and made sure he was dead by shooting him in the face. A face shot, typically that's personal. Until I can eliminate the wife, she's on the hook. So, here we are. We're talking about part 2 of this crazy homicide case. And you may be looking at the background wondering where I'm at. Well, I travel quite a bit. So I'm actually in a hotel room in Vegas set up to bring you part 2 of this crazy tale. I've got to sit down with this wife. I've got to find out everything that she knows, the last time she spoke to her husband. So she's back at Homicide. I arrive at the office, and instead of video, I decided to do audio.
Okay, today is November 12, 2007.
What you're going to hear is the actual transcript of me interviewing this victim's wife.
My name is Detective Velazquez, Atlanta Police Homicide. Okay, we're here at Atlanta Police Headquarters, and we'll do an audio interview.
But to protect her identity, we're going to alter her voice.
When I first met Dennis, I met him at a party that we were all at. But then Dennis and I became friends.
So everybody's a suspect when it comes to a homicide until you're not. We have to eliminate you. But a wife is a treasure trove of information. She was the last person, presumably, to see her husband alive. And we don't know what the motive is yet. We know that there's a necklace missing from this victim. Could be robbery. That could be staged. We don't know. So if there's another more nefarious motive, maybe this victim's wife can lead me in the right direction. Maybe he had bad business dealings. Maybe he had beef with someone around his neighborhood. Maybe there's someone in his family. So could this be personal? My number one goal is to eliminate the wife, but then really dive in to see what she knows to put me in the right direction.
Let's talk about Dennis's family. Does he have any ex-wives?
I would tell you he does have one that he was married to for about 22, 23 years.
My first impression is this woman is polished. And she, in my opinion, at the time was appropriately grieving.
Dennis met her and married her when he was in New York.
There's times where I've interviewed family members and their grieving process is a little bit what one would say odd, but that doesn't mean that they did it. People grieve in different ways.
Who else?
Before her, he was married like back in the early 70s, and I don't remember that girl's name.
Everything this victim's wife was doing, she was checking off the boxes.
And then I think he told me at 16 he was married.
Trying to get facts out, asking hard questions, asking questions that I know is going to invoke an emotional response.
So he was married 3 times.
He was married 3 times before me.
Are the responses to the questions reasonable? Those are things that a trained homicide detective, a trained interrogator will pick up on. And if I start to feel that, what they call my spidey senses tingling, then I might start focusing in on the wife. So one thing I want to do right now, I really want to pay attention to how she answers these questions. All the while, trying to pick up on clues, information, write notes, pay attention, look at her in the eye, and be empathetic. The main thing any homicide detective needs to do in a situation like this is always remember, you don't know who did it at this point. You really don't know. And you have to be empathetic to this family member because at the end of the day, it's likely they didn't do it, and you only have one shot at this.
What did Dennis do?
Dennis was a truck driver, crane operator.
So one of the things that I asked this victim's wife was, tell me about your relationship with your husband. Because until I can rinse off this wife, I need to get a good picture of what their relationship was like. Were they a happily married couple? The victim's wife went on to say that there were no ideas of extramarital affairs. There was no issues where the victim was cheating or even she, the wife of this poor victim, was stepping out of the marriage. In all accounts, this victim's wife said for the 10 years and even the subsequent years before that where they were dating, never did they have any extramarital issues, and they were the ideal married couple.
Would have liked him if you knew.
That's what I'm hearing.
And everybody that liked him.
The victim's wife went on to say that she had been married prior.
Let's start with your ex-husband. When were you divorced?
1997.
I had to think back. There's two things missing from this victim. His gold necklace, but the pendant is still there, and his wedding ring. And I have to wonder, why would you take that wedding ring only and not the other jewelry that's on his other hand, other fingers, if it was truly a robbery?
How long were you married to?
I was married to him right about 10 years.
I still had to consider, could this be a jealous ex-husband? A man scorned, right? We know what could happen. The ultimate betrayal could lead to murder.
Well, let me ask you, when's the last time you spoke to prior to the murder?
I haven't seen or spoken to the divorce, really. I've been very fortunate not to run into him.
She hadn't seen this ex-husband, and that was an appropriate response.
So let's just look at this logically. There's nothing been happening with calling you lately.
No.
In the last years, trying to get back with you.
No.
I didn't see anything that drew any red flags. So right now, I put a pin in that until I can verify exactly who this ex-husband was. Motive is so important. If you can understand why a victim was killed, many times it leads you right to the who did it. So one of the questions I had to ask the wife was there anybody she was aware of that wanted to cause harm to her husband? Did he have bad blood with anybody? Business dealings, personally, friends, anything that could put me in the right direction? And this victim's wife went on to say that he had no enemies. He did no one wrong. Everyone loved him. And she was scratching her head thinking of who could have done this to her husband. So one of the things I wanted to know, from the crime scene, and I'm looking in the backyard, I see all these cameras. So I had to ask, like, what's going on? And the victim's wife went on to say that based on the neighborhood they lived in, that there had been some break-ins. They had heard neighbors saying that some of the houses were burglarized. And the husband, this victim in this case, decided that in an abundance of caution, let's put some cameras up. But the odd thing was they put this whole security system in, but there was no tape. And the victim's wife went on to say that it wasn't uncommon for this victim and herself, she admittedly said, to become complacent, to put a tape in, tape over something, review it, not put a tape in. And finally, they just forgot to put the tape in. They put in a system, and then just being lazy, they didn't maintain it. And now I have to ask the question, with all these weapons in the house, there was a weapon on the refrigerator, there was a weapon here, weapon there.
Two of those guns were my guns. The little Derringer was Dennis's that he gave me actually when we met.
Any other handguns in the house that I missed?
No.
The wife went on to say that the victim in this case is old school. He was someone who always have a handgun in his home for personal protection.
I am of the opinion that if somebody tries to bother me, I will defend myself.
Understandably, myself, I have weapons in my house for protection, as do many Americans. So it didn't really make me suspicious because of these weapons being in there. But at this point, I don't know if any of these guns are the murder weapon. I don't even know exactly what caliber of weapon I'm looking for. So those guns are still on the list of a possibility. One of the most important things a homicide detective has to do is create a timeline.
What I really need to do is I need to lock down some times for that day.
The timeline starts from when I get the call, and then I got to go backwards.
My appointment was at 11 a.m.
Okay, so you were home until 10:30ish.
And now, in speaking to the wife, she's putting pins in my timeline.
Was he working that day?
Yes, he had been working.
The victim in this case had arrived home late afternoon because he needed to get fitted for a tuxedo for an upcoming wedding of a family member.
So I heard the door open.
And that was Dennis?
And that was Dennis. I said, well, look, I got to run an errand real quick, and I will be back.
So what time was that?
I swear that had to be around 6.
So now the way she sets this up, around 6 p.m., she's pulling out of the driveway to go to a local mall to do some shopping. She sees the local handyman who had done some work for her a few days earlier.
Bill came up, walking.
So she speaks to this guy she describes as Bill, who had cleaned some leather couches for her and her husband some time earlier.
I said, Bill, I need to pay you. I'm getting ready to run an errand. I said, Dennis is here. Why don't you come back at 7?
But in the meantime, Dennis, her husband, is in the back. Go in the back, have a drink with him, chop it up with him, and I'll see you when I get back and I'll pay you. And then this victim's wife leaves for the mall.
So you're gone, you drive away, you go to Greenbrier.
Yes.
The victim's wife's shopping spree took a little longer than expected. She was supposed to be back by 7, but now it's about 8 p.m. It's dark, it's cold outside, it's November, it's a brisk night. And she pulls in, the gate to the back driveway is open, which is not unusual when her husband is home.
Okay, you get home, what do you do?
I go in the door was unlocked.
Back door?
Back door.
She enters her home, she doesn't see her husband, she starts to call out.
And I come on back around through the kitchen, through the den, but you know what? It was dark.
She can't find her husband anywhere. She feels that something's not right. And as she's searching the entire house, calling out for her husband, she grabs a can of pepper spray.
And I get the mace and I go outside.
She goes to the backyard. There's a dog kennel in the back where they keep their dog Samson. It's a German Shepherd. And as she stepped closer, she sees her husband laying there. In her mind, in her interpretation, at that very moment, she couldn't see the blood. She thought her husband may have collapsed from a heart attack.
I had the mace in my hand, so I guess that's where I must have dropped it or something.
Mm-hmm.
And that explains the pepper spray we found next to the victim's body.
And I came back in and I called 911.
And that explains the phone handset being found later next to the victim's body, because as she went back outside, she dropped that as well. And she's just in a panic. She's on the phone with 911. She doesn't know exactly what's happened to her husband, but she knows he's down. He doesn't look like he's being responsive. He doesn't even look like he's breathing, and she needs some help.
I do remember some kind of blood splatter. And I remember his mouth was kind of open. This eye was open. This eye was kind of pushed in.
During this interview with the victim's wife, I had a sense that she was really a grieving wife, and everything she said made sense. And when she starts talking about the can of pepper spray that was found next to the victim, it made sense of why she got it. So when I finished this interview, I had the feeling that this victim's wife had nothing to do with it. Nothing in that interview I picked up on caused me any concern that I needed to start digging deeper into the wife of this victim.
And so that's when I went next door and I was banging on my neighbor's door and she came out. And by the time we came out of her house, the fire department was coming up. And I just saying, please help us. And that's when they came in.
So now what I have is a window of opportunity. Based on when the wife says she left the house at 6 p.m. and when she returned at 8 p.m. So there's a 2-hour window of opportunity at this point. And that's huge. That might as well be the Grand Canyon. I need to close the gap on this timeline. 2 hours is a tremendous amount of time for someone to commit this crime and get away with it.
Let me ask you some specific questions. You see Bill.
But it was like he disappeared.
So she mentions this Bill, the handyman guy, so of course that piques my interest. Only 2 other people to her knowledge were at the crime scene, the victim and Handyman Bill. I want to know everything she knows about Bill.
When did you guys meet Bill?
I met Bill about two months ago.
The victim's wife goes on to say that this is someone, unassuming. She described Bill as an elderly gentleman that cuts grass in the neighborhood, odd jobs here and there, and had seen him cutting a neighbor's grass one time.
So when I saw him actually in the yard, I waved to him, and he came out and I asked him if he did yard work, and he said yes. I said, well, I live just right up the street, and I appreciate it. Maybe you could come and take a look at doing some stuff up there.
And that led to Bill doing other odd jobs around this wife's home where the victim lived.
Has Bill ever come on to you?
No, the only time Bill said to me when we first met, he asked me what was my sign. I told him that I was Taurus, and he said I had 3 lovers that were Taurus.
As a detective, I could be suspicious of everybody. It doesn't really mean anything, but what's really important is who's close to the victim and who are they suspicious of?
I thought maybe he might have been trying to flirt then, but I didn't.
Of course, I'm trying to pick up on clues as she's describing who this Handyman Bill is. So I just asked her. I said, tell me about Bill. Is he somebody that you think could have done this? And she said no.
You and Bill never had any relationship?
No, Jesus. No.
She said Bill is just someone who does work for us. The victim's wife said that even one time when they went on vacation, her and her husband, that they used Bill the handyman to come and care for their dog, Samson, the German Shepherd that was in the pen in the backyard. So they trusted Bill.
Dennis, I've heard him speak harshly to Bill sometimes.
She did mention there was one particular time where the victim had asked the Handyman Bill to come over and move some items around in the backyard and do some work around the shed. Later to learn that Bill the Handyman brought another person with him to help him, a stranger, and that didn't sit well with the victim. And because of that, the victim and Bill the Handyman had some words. According to the victim's wife, the victim was not happy about that and let Bill know and was quite harsh with him. I gotta talk to Bill. Bill is someone that may have been the last person to see this victim alive. Bill may be a phenomenal witness to put me in the right direction. So this victim's wife gives me exact location of where Bill the Handyman lives. He literally lives 4 houses down from this crime scene. So I leave the victim, I leave her at headquarters, and I head straight over to Bill the Handyman's house. I gotta get some answers from Bill, and you're gonna hear all about it on the next episode. Coming up on The Murder Mind. Now we get to the real meat and potatoes of what I want to know.
What door did you go into?
The back door.
The sliding glass door?
Yes.
Right now, I'm looking at this guy sideways. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please hit the like button and subscribe. And please check me out on other social media platforms, Instagram, X, TikTok, and Facebook. Lastly, don't forget to come back for the next episode. You won't want to miss it.